Stars and Spikes, Sydney Tyler Tommy on this first day of the secondary transfer window 2023. Gentlemen, how are you?
Sad.
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 Why are you sad?
We have a
Let's
fallen
talk our
comrade.
feelings through.
Fallen comrade. He's gone,
Dead.
man.
He's not
And
dead.
I get it business-wise, but the Goatman is gone.
The
And I'm upset
Goatman is
about it.
gone. Yeah. Andrew Goodman, of course, traded to the Colorado Rapids for GAM, an international slot, as you all may have heard already. So that's the big news, and we're going to talk about that, of course. Later on, Greg Sutton from MLS Season Pass, former Canadian international and former MLS goalkeeper, will be joining us to give us kind of the Montreal Impact angle of things as Atlanta United prepares to take on CF Montreal on Saturday, north of the border. But guys, yeah, let's start out. And we already talked about it briefly the other night, but yeah, let's talk about Andrew Gutman. We now know the financial terms for K and GAM, plus 150 more potentially if he hits certain performance incentives, and of course an international roster spot who we're assuming is going to be used for Tristan Muyumba from Guingamp in France. So like we say, he's not dead. He is only in the new place. So
Rest in peace.
Jesus.
Just stop. We're gonna start the show over if you don't stop. Tyler.
Man, look, it's just every time I buy a kit with somebody's name on it, they go. And it's driving me crazy. I get it. The money, I get it's good business. If I'm being honest, I get it.
Can I just give a mini rant real quick?
Go ahead. Let's go. I want to hear a Sydney rant.
Atlanta United is not in the business of keeping around players you like. Okay.
This is true.
Yes, you can get attached to the player, and that's perfectly fine. But first and foremost, it's a business. And Garth Lagerwey and Carlos Bocanegra are not sitting in the front office saying, gosh, who can we screw over next time? How can we screw the fans over and trade somebody away that everybody likes? That's not how it works. This is a business. Yes, it's tough to see Andrew Gutman gone. Yes, he was a good servant and a good player and a good personality throughout his time with Atlanta United. I get that. But at the same time, we have to stop and step back and say, you know what? Atlanta United is not doing this stuff intentionally. Yes, I know the past few years haven't gone well, but it just boggles my mind. Not everyone, but half my time was like Boca out and fire Boca. He's not making this move without Garth Lagerwey's approval. At least I would hope not. And if he gets fired for trading away Andrew Gutman, who I'm sure had to have the whirlpool over his eyes and was just told 2 minutes before it happened, oh, you're being traded to Colorado. There has to be a common agreement between two parties for these things to happen. It's not Carlos Bocanegra screwing fans over and screwing Atlanta United over. It's a business. And fans need to understand that. I'm just so frustrated seeing Boca out. He's not going anywhere. At least for the time being. Okay, so no, I'm just it's just God.
I get it. I do get it. I get it. Like at the end of the day, like I like Andrew Gutman. I really do. Y'all know this. It's not like it's a thing. Like I think he's
okay.
he brought what you want to this, and that was, he came here to play, and he wanted to play, and he was all about playing. He was all about the hard work, even when it always wasn't good. And I think that goes a long way. 100%. Like you're right, Sydney. Like definitely it is a business. As much as sometimes we don't like to think it is now. Granted, you get some right, you get some wrong. But I think it does make sense from a business perspective. That doesn't mean I have to like it right now. I like Gutman. I think he's a good player. I think Colorado's getting a good guy. I think they probably don't understand how good of a player they're getting. But at the same time, I mean, yes, he has been a little weaker defensively. You need defensive work right now. You don't need to slack in that area at all. So it makes sense why he was kind of the one that had to go. Now, his personal kind of feelings and side of it, who knows? I have no idea. But from an Atlanta perspective, business perspective, I get it.
Great business too. Great bit of business too, financially and from a logistics standpoint. Get that international spot, obviously. So, but I had to get that off my chest. Sorry, Tommy. How many times have the Ducks traded players that you liked? I'm sure
all the time. I was trying to get into the 10-minute mark of not saying anything. See how far I can get there. So thank you. I guess I lost. I mean, it happens. It happens all the time. You know, there was a couple thoughts. Listening to both of you talk. First off, if you told me name a player to go get a jersey of Atlanta United and with a player's name on it, I probably would have said, not Marcelino Moreno, I would have said probably Brooks Lennon or Andrew Gutman. I mean, I think it was kind of expected that they were going to sign him to an extension at some point. Yes, they had an option for him next year, but he definitely seemed like he was a person that was going to be here for a long time. So, yeah, I agree with Tyler. Like that probably, if I would have gotten a player's name on it, it probably would have been, Gutman. Now, you talk about players that you like, and one of the problems that this club has had for quite some time is they haven't really built the relationships with the fans, with the players like they used to, especially in the first couple of years. Like, you continuously saw videos of like the players having fun with each other, and a lot of them didn't even speak English. You know what I mean? And like, you still like loved these players because they just had these fun videos that were going on all the time. Used to see the FIFA release, the ratings videos. You'd see him joking around. And I think that's something that the club has been lacking over the years. It's really creating some of these players and tying that relationship. Like, everybody loved Gressel for a lot of reasons. Great player, but like, he was always on social media. He was always doing good things in the community. They made videos of it showing that. And you really haven't seen too much of that with a lot of these current players that you have. Like, I don't know if Brooks Lennon's, an interesting person or not, but like, he's one of the longest tenured players on this team. I'd love to know more about Brooks Lennon. They don't really do a lot about it. And I was going to call him Goatman. Jesus. It's
rest in peace.
He was active on social media. He was continuously on there, and I think that's why we loved him. After that first game, he was talking a little trash about Felipe, and Doug, and calling them out, and that's what he was. But I think that as far as fan favorites go, I think that they need to start creating some of those as well, because we want to know more about these players. Like, that's what made me fall in love with this team, right? It was like knowing about all these guys. And like, Joseph Martinez is one of the best players in the league, and he's just having fun on all these videos. He's rapping gifts with Brad Guzan. I won that contest. I have the balls. And but like, it was just always just fun things that they would do, and like, you'd get to know these players a little bit more, and they haven't done that. So I guess that's what's a little frustrating.
Is that more of the club as a new club trying to stand out among others?
I
just
hope
being
not.
fresh, just being new, or I mean, granted, and I don't want to steer this away from Gutman too much, but there are a lot of people that were with Atlanta United from a marketing and the social media standpoint that are no longer with the club for whatever reason. And yes, I agree the social product has declined to a small extent. I mean, it's still great. I mean, I'm not crapping on social at all.
I think it's just different. I don't know if it's declined.
Different.
It's just a different
I agree.
vibe.
Yeah, maybe different is a better word.
It's team focused. Like, it's team focused, right? Like, they make great videos every week, especially when you win, you lose. Like, they show those great videos. It's just the individual players. Like, sometimes they would just, and I know they did it last year, where I think they had the headphones on. They were trying to, like, understand what they were, the sentence that they were saying. And that's good. Yeah. But like, I want to know a little bit more about these guys. I think that would just be something that would be interesting. I don't think the social media is lacking. But yeah, I think you have a good point there, Sydney. It's just changed a little bit. But I think these fans want to get, to know some of these guys a little bit more, fall in love with them, like the early days when you knew about these guys and they were doing the fun videos and all that. And, I mean, you had Almiron and Joseph Martinez going back and forth. There was no English being said at all. And it's the videos got crazy views. Everybody's loving these two players. And it's like, okay, we know that these guys love Atlanta. They're two of the best players in the league, and they just seem like cool guys. And I think that they should be doing that a little bit more with some of these guys. Like Giacomakis is a personality, guys. Like you guys get to talk to him after games, right? Nobody really knows unless you're watching those videos of him talk that he's a really cool guy. Like he seems like he's just he's intense, but he's fun, and he makes, everybody talks about leadership. If you don't go back and watch some of those videos, you don't know that he's like he talks about this leadership type thing. So I think that's just some things that they can really focus on to make it better.
So where the club goes now, obviously, I mean, really all signs point to Caleb Wiley at that left back slot. I think the plan was always to try to get Etienne and Wiley on the field at the same time, considering the form that Wiley's been in this season. And it's great to see him, just blossom into really this reliable and strong player for Atlanta United, and another success story from the academy. I mean, we all know Sunday night he kind of gave Olivier and Biza the old scoreboard, and
got him.
Yeah, got him indeed. So I'm looking forward to seeing him at that left back slot and really making that spot his own. But I'm also looking forward to seeing who Atlanta United brings in, and a lot of people are saying a TAM winger, and it has to be a TAM winger, right? I feel that that's the most logical move. I read that Doug was saying they should get a central defender, because if and when Miles leaves, you're gonna have Abraham and Cobb there, and nothing against them, but you want some more reliability and some more experience at that spot, because it's such a critical spot for Atlanta. And of course, as we've all talked about, central midfielder, it looks like that box is checked with Muyumba apparently coming in. So, I mean, am I wrong? Is there another spot you guys feel Atlanta needs to address?
I think obviously, like, the obvious one is where they've got Muyumba coming in, right? And yes, that's not officially official, but I think we can all agree, like, this is like a 99% kind of like Tom Bogert's announced it. It's happening. So you add something to that midfield. The international slots you're getting for Gutman probably goes to Muyumba, but that's not it. Like, there's clearly going to be some other moves made. I mean, you got 400,000 minimum over the next 2 years of Garber bucks coming in because of this Andrew Gutman trade. Potentially 150,000 more, depending on, if he meets certain milestones and whatever with Colorado. So, I mean, you've got like a significant amount of money to play with just because of this. And that's not including the other moves that were made in the beginning of the season, everything else that's going on. So, like, Lagerwey said on 92.9 The Game a few days ago that they're looking to bring in 2 to 3 players. So that they're looking to be busy in this window. Yes, TAM winger, maybe a DP winger, depending on who you get. I mean, I don't think a DP winger is out of the question. I just think it's got to be the right guy. Like, I look, if it were up to me, I would have jumped all over Di Maria whenever he was not linked to Benfica. But you get the right, DP player, then okay, use that DP spot for a winger. But I don't necessarily think it has to be that. But you do have room to make moves, and you do have to make moves. And, you look at this Philly game, and Atlanta played so well with what they had. And the tactics really, really fit the players that were on the pitch. Now you have the opportunity to go out and get a couple more players that not only will they fit maybe Pineda's typical style, but also the plan B that that we talk about a lot. So you've got options here to really shore up a lot of weaknesses for Atlanta. And again, I keep calling this summer transfer window the big variable in terms of what the last part of the season looks like. And they make the right moves, and you're looking at an entirely different set of circumstances in August. So, I mean, I think you're hitting the nail on the head, definitely, Sydney. Like, I think you've got to do the midfield and somehow the winger spot in some way, shape, or form. Do I think either one of those need to be a DP? Not necessarily. I think you can get away with a good TAM player for either one of them. I mean, you're essentially maybe getting one, Mayumba. I don't know if he's gonna be a TAM player or not. More than likely, he's not gonna be a DP, but who knows? Maybe they throw a curveball and they just go after a spot that we haven't been thinking about for that DP spot. And then you got to solve the U22 issue as well.
And that's the big thing here is I don't know when they have to fix that U22 situation, but it's got to be quick. I assume it's got to be fixed right when the window opens, when they have an opportunity to do it. So, I mean, it could be in the next couple days that they try and fix it. And I've been trying to think of positives and negatives of this trade, and obviously the chemistry between Wiley and Gutman is going to be missed because so much. We talked about the right side struggling with Lennon and Aruju early on in the season offensively. And then on the other side, you just had Wiley and Gutman who knew how to, go back and forth and knew when to attack, the defense wasn't that great, especially with Gutman, but still that side was producing a lot. It was really the focus, a lot of the offense early on in the year. So Etienne coming back here is going to be, I think, significant for him because he's going to have to make up some of this time. And can he play? Can he get to where we need our wingers to play? And he hasn't done that. And I think fans are getting a little frustrated with him. And this is a big time for him now to come back. He's basically penciled in as a starter now. And he's going to have to continue to, get better and score because you're likely without Giakoumakis for at least 2 weeks. So someone else is going to have to be making up those goals. Is it Barry? It's Barry not likely. So,
yeah.
God, so corny.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
He had to do it.
I had to.
You're waiting.
But yeah, I mean, that's frustrating. But you have Ronald Hernandez, who's been on this team now for years, who really hasn't had an opportunity and play consistently. And I think that's what a lot of these players need, right? Consistency. But every time he goes to Venezuela, the guy's scoring a banger of a goal, or he's putting on a good performance there. And then he comes here and then, he might have a bad performance and everyone's knocking him, saying he's not good. But let's see what he can do. If you can get him into some games here and have him play consistently, I think that he's a great option. And then you also have McFadden, who, took a step last year, had to play a lot of games that he wasn't expected to. And he was learning, right? Like he definitely had some struggles last year. But I thought that he is a good MLS backup. So you have the depth here.
Yeah, I agree. And while we're on this conversation, because I mean, you got to think like a lot of this stuff is coming from Gutman, and we can beat the dead horse. Like this is the first of many, I think, changes that are going to happen within the next month. And it's very clear, by the way, we're always like, where are the Atlanta rumors? Where are they at? Like, we need something. Get used to it. This is Lagerwey. This is how he's gonna hold everything close to his chest. So I think like the days of having like the, unless it's something big, the Fabrizio Romanos, the Tom Bogerts, the Merlots, like those kind of rumors coming like weeks ahead of time, I don't think you're going to get that much anymore. Not saying it's not going to happen, but you could have something official come out in the next week that we haven't even heard about yet. I'm not talking about Mayumba. I'm talking about anything else. And I think that's kind of what Lagerwey is banking on. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Got to drop this real quick. Andrew Gutman saying, thank you, ATL, for our time spent together. The fans in the city made me feel at home from day one. Gave it my all every day in hopes to repay the support I received. Our time together was short, but it was an experience I'll cherish and never forget. Thank you. That was posted on Twitter. Not long ago, about an hour ago, actually. So, yeah, I mean, we know he's a fan favorite, right? Y'all heard my rant earlier. Yeah, Ariel's saying in the chat, "I'm not crying, you're crying."
Right.
It ran out of characters. There was supposed to be another line that said, "Thank you for buying my kit, Tyler."
Yeah.
He just ran out of characters.
Yeah, it was there.
He's not verified.
He doesn't have the blue check mark. Or it was coming.
I'll throw this out there real quick because people in the chat are talking about it, and I actually saw it before we went on the air. Santi Moreno is apparently not in good terms with Gio Savarese in Portland. Yes, no?
No chance.
He plays on the left. I'll throw that out there. He plays on the left, so that'll force Etienne on the right. Why not?
It's going to cost too much. It's probably going to be a record GAM type trade. I don't think that Atlanta's going to go and spend all of that for him. I think they already turned down an offer for him at one point. That was like a huge number. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else, but like they're gonna want too much, and I don't think that's a good move there.
I don't think it's a need right now either.
Right.
I mean, he's a great player, but I just don't know that. We talk about Atlanta's wings all the time, and you have depth. Now we can talk about quality, whatever, and get into tactics different time, but you have a lot of folks literally waiting on the wings right now. We talked about the U22 spots. Tommy, you were talking about Edwin Mosquera. We got to figure out what we're going to do with him. He's the fourth U22. So it's a matter of, is he the one that you're cutting? Are you moving somebody like Sosa? Are you moving
Sosa?
I think so, but like, I'm not Bocanegra, right? Like, I don't know kind of what they're thinking, but I just feel like Sosa is in this lineup and this, play style that Pineda's doing. I think he's the weakest link. So, but if you get rid of Sosa, you keep Mosquera, or you get rid of both of them. But if you keep Mosquera, that's another winger that you have. And, you've already got Chop occasionally playing on the wings. Obviously, Wiley's going to play there. Lennon, Hernandez, McFadden, like these guys are all there. So I just don't know that that's what they're going to be focusing on. And Moreno would be a great one, but I just don't know that he's a target.
Yeah. And again, I think what plays into it is he plays on the left, and Etienne, he could play on the right, but he primarily plays on the left. So I think that's another portion of it. I would think if Etienne were not with the team, and Lenny United had not made a move there in the off season, that would be something that they'll look at, but it'll likely be not something else, or not something that I would pursue at this current point in time. But yeah, they definitely have options. Tyler Wolff is another option.
Yep.
Probably.
Can't forget about him.
Who, by the way, scored, I think. But yeah, exactly. Always scored, like, I think in 3 or 4 straight matches in my Football Manager sim. So
there you go.
Play that out there.
We're on the right track.
But yeah, heads off to Andrew, a good servant for the club and a terrific personality. Our first guest here on Scarves and Spikes. And he will always have that. One of our first guests on Scarves and Spikes, and he will always have that designation. So yeah, best of luck to him, and hopefully he has a long, fruitful career in the league. As we said, we have Greg Sutton coming up. Greg is with MLS Season Pass. Again, former Canadian international keeper, and a former MLS player, especially with Toronto, Montreal, etc. And we'll get to him. Do we want to get to him now, or do we have a couple more things we got to hit on first?
We'll go ahead and.
Well, I got one thought.
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick.
Just because you're talking about the U22s, just remember, Mosquera last year, yeah, he didn't do much, but he brought something that was a little bit different than everybody else. He brought speed. And Atlanta really lacked a lot of speed last year, especially on the offensive side. And I think especially if we're scoring goals, right? And it's later in games. You could really exploit that by bringing in someone fast to be able to do some of these counters and be able to create scoring opportunities. And that's what he did very well. And this team wasn't even very good last year. Now, just thinking about, he didn't play much on his loan, right? So there's probably very likely not someone else is going to take him. Same with the Eric Lopez situation that we've been dealing with for years. Like you're having to beg somebody to take him. Like right now, the only person that really has value is Sosa and Ibarra. And yeah, Sosa hasn't been great, but he still has a market out there for him for sure. So I don't think you're able to get anybody to take Mosquera away or Eric Lopez at this point. So it has to make sense that it has to be Sosa at this here. And if it's Ibarra, then I'm just flying down to Atlanta and screaming. He's come so far in 1 year, right? Like he's night and day from this point really last season to now. Like we always thought that Ibarra was going to be the one that was going to go out of this group because it just wasn't working. Even in the preseason, remember? Like the preseason, Pineda screaming at him on the sidelines, things aren't working out, and now he's one of our best defenders out there. It's crazy how sports work. Sports are weird.
They really are.
Yeah, sports are weird. Same dog as Caleb Wiley or different dog?
Different dog.
Different dog.
Different dog. Plus his own dog named Jack. Jack Ibarra, who is the new model for the Marvel kits, apparently.
At Soy Jack Ibarra on Instagram.
Soy Jack Ibarra on Instagram.
All right. Yeah, hats off to Andrew. Good player, good person, good servant for the league, and best wishes in Colorado. Let's turn the page and talk about Montreal, who, by the way, made a big move of their own. Kwadwo Opoku making the move from LAFC to Montreal, and he could be in the lineup for I almost said Montreal Impact, CF Montreal, as Atlanta United takes them on Saturday at Stade Saputo. On the call for that one with Ed Cohen on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV will be, again, former Canadian international keeper and former MLS keeper, Greg Sutton. Greg, how are you today?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing well. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Really
Sydney, you did a little bit of a faux pas, but it's a common in this neck of the woods when you mentioned the Montreal Impact, because there's a lot of history with that club, and so don't take offense. No one here will.
Names.
I know, it's crazy. There was a little bit of a period here with the club that wasn't going in the right direction, let's say.
Right.
And, some leadership changes happened, and then now we're hopeful that it's heading back in that direction.
Yeah, and let's kind of lead off with Kwadwo Opoku. Of course, was with LAFC for several years as part of the MLS Cup team last year, their Champions League, and all of that. What does he bring to Montreal? What are they looking for with him in the lineup, and how important will he be to this roster?
Yeah, he's vital right now, and for the biggest reason that Romel Kyoto is out. And we know it's long term. We don't know exactly what that date is when he'll return, but it's probably months rather than weeks. And so they're missing a profile that's really dangerous, if you will. And I think Opoku will bring that profile to this club. I think he's even different than Romel Kyoto to a certain extent, where he's just very dynamic in the way he can, take a game by the scruff of the neck and change and flip it on its head by himself. So they've had some good servants filling in for Romel Kyoto. Shinoso Ofor has been a good servant. Mason Toy been injured, but has recently come back and has been doing well. But again, he's only maybe 2 games back or 3 games back since him, being sidelined for months. So there hasn't been that kind of that dangerous weapon up top where, as I said, the game could be going okay for them and then it could be changed by one, single player. And I think that's what Opoku can do for them. So that was a lot of money. I think it's record breaking of what I read. So you can understand the need that this Montreal side believes that they need to fill up there up top.
So how do you see him and Hernan Losada's plans? You kind of hit on it already, but how that plan
Yeah,
will be
no, I
worked.
mean, they've been playing, a 3-5-2, and at times playing with a lone striker. And so I think he's going to be somebody that will give him that option to play either with two strikers or with a single striker himself. And I think, what I think will offer this club, which they don't really have right now, is that ability to find the space in behind. And really stretch teams. And I think that's something this team is needs right now. And as I said, 04, he's more of a target hold up guy. Same thing with kind of Mason Toy. Mason gives you a little bit of that, but not to the extent that I think Opoku will do. And then, the other great thing about Opoku is he can be that kind of guy who can just you know, kind of float around that back line and pop up on the side if he wants and take players on in 1v1 situations and interchange with some of his wingers. So I think he's going to be a welcome addition for Hernan Losada. Hernan Losada's talked about welcoming all kinds of offensive additions to the club. It's out of his hands, but Olivier Renard and the brass in the front office obviously put a lot of resources and money towards him, so they're hoping he's going to come through. And I think this is also not just for this season, but I think long term. I think this is something that this club has been about, trying to develop some younger talent, and we've seen it with some of the last year's departures. Kone is an example of it. Young players that come into the club and then sign with bigger clubs overseas, and we've seen that with Alistair Johnson as well. And so, I think this is another case where I think Opoku could spend a year or two, maybe a little longer, and then there could be that option of selling him overseas or abroad.
So, Greg, we didn't get an opportunity to wish you happy first day of the transfer window being open. It's a holiday.
Oh. Yeah, you got to help me out with those dates, because I get when the summer months come along, I know when Friday and Saturday and Sunday are here, but in between those dates, like you got to keep me on task. But that's great. That's good to know.
Well, we've already been grieving Andrew Groupman. Tyler has his jersey on right now, and he's a little upset. But this transfer window seems like it's going to be crazy, right? We've already got Messi, and it seems like every day we get a new rumor about a friend of Messi's possibly coming to MLS. This is could be potentially one of the craziest windows we've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think this changes things?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just it's the development of Major League Soccer and the growth of this league. I mean, we keep talking about expansion. Well, obviously, expansion. There's going to be a number of players that are going to need to be acquired throughout the year, and so I think this is a league that is ever changing. It's different than all other leagues around the world, of course, and so I think it's exciting for the fans. I think this has got to be something that has to be on the forefront of Don Garber, of course, making sure that he's continually making this league something to talk about. And when you have acquisitions and you have a lot of changes that happen even within the league itself, there's an appetite for it, and that's, I think, a lot has to do with just the way that North American sports are perceived and how they're run. And so I think it's great. I think it's something that gives hope to all fans, even with fans that perhaps their clubs are not, doing that great currently in the year, but making 1-2 acquisitions can change that. And I'll take Montreal for an example. I mean, they started out the season poor, and a lot had to do with obviously the changes of coaching from Wilfred Nancy to Hernan Losada. But they made an acquisition for Bryce Duke and Ariel Lassiter, and when they came aboard, things started to change, and they've gone on a good run, and a lot has obviously also had to do with them playing at home. But this was a case where Kamal Miller wasn't playing that great here in Montreal at the beginning of the season, and now he's made a move that's actually benefited him as well. So it's worked out for both parties and all players, and so. Again, I think it's great. I think acquisitions, all kinds of moving parts all the time will keep everyone on their toes, and I guess more or less us as the media to make sure that we keep our facts straight.
So you touched on a really good point with Montreal specifically. What makes Montreal so good at home. They're one of the better teams at home. Obviously, Atlanta's going up there. Not really the best place for Atlanta over the years, but just in general, they're a good team at home. What makes them so good at home?
Well, it's hard to put your finger on it, to be honest with you, Tyler. I think one of the things that Hernan Losada has kind of echoed over the last couple media sessions that we've had with him prior to the weekend's games is that they love the 12th man, if you will, the crowd getting behind them and encouraging them and moving them on to another level. And sometimes that's all it takes is just a little bit more of, that encouragement and the confidence just can grow within your group so quickly. And then it just becomes a mindset, becomes a psychological hurdle when you're on the road to try and get over. But when you're at home, you just feel more comfortable, you feel more confident. And this is what this team has kind of been like outside of last week's game when New York finally came in and won on the road. That was a first for them. And Montreal had played unbelievable up to that point at home. But I think it's just plain and simple comes down to just having that kind of home field advantage, right? As simplistic as it sounds.
Yeah, the North Star has been ringing a lot for CF Montreal this season for sure. But so what does Atlanta need to do to get this win? I mean, Tyler mentioned that this team aren't the best away from Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We've, like you said, saw NYCFC beating them the other night.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what's kind of the secret for Atlanta United to come away with a win?
Yeah, I mean, I think Atlanta will look a lot at the film of how New York approached this game and kind of matched up very well against the three center backs for Montreal and made it difficult for them by just putting a lot of pressure high up the field with their three attacking players. And I think that could be something that Atlanta will probably recognize and can kind of tactically force Montreal into being a little bit different and kind of getting out of their norm of how they like to play. And a lot has to do with the three center backs having, that build up ability and having the ball at their feet and having time. And New York didn't give them that. And so they put them under pressure, and forced a lot of balls into the midfield, which was turned over. And then the other issue that Montreal had was just they had some depth issues. Obviously, a couple guys away, Aaron Herrera, Zachio Broguillard away for the Gold Cup, forced Hernan Losada to play Sean Rea out on the right side, and that was not his normal position. So he got a right-sided player that's normally used to playing in the middle of the field. That was very uncomfortable, and I think New York City exploited that opportunity there to get at Sean Ray on that side of the field. So there's going to be something similar in that action. I think there's going to be probably someone different than Sean Ray in that wide position on the right, but I think that Atlanta can do what New York did and put them under pressure by just putting a little bit more pressure higher up the field on the three center backs. If they can do that, I think they could have a good opportunity. And let's not forget, Sejdic knows this team very well and knows this stadium very well, having played here. So he'll be comfortable coming into this place and taking up a spot in that midfield and going up against the likes of Victor Wanyama and potentially Matthew Chouanier if he's back fit, which is a big piece for them, Montreal, if they're able to get the All-Star back. But yeah, I mean, I think this is just a team where you can't be afraid to step out and put them under pressure, because I think there's some challenges there. Not to mention Joel Waterman also left the game last weekend as well, and so we don't know his status either in the center back position. So I think it's going to be a game that'll be exciting. I think it'll be an open-ended game, especially if Opoku plays as well. I think we could see some really fun soccer this weekend.
So, kind of on that same subject, of course, we all know what Wilfred Nancy did with his club last year over his tenure as well. Then you have Losada coming in. Didn't really have the best of 10 years with DC United. So, right now, they're kind of right at the bottom of the playoff position right now. So, I guess what are reasonable expectations for this club in 2023?
Yeah, I mean, I think reasonable expectations would just be to make the playoffs. And I think they're going to have a challenge in the future to do that this season. Frankly, if they don't do better on the road, it's great to win at home like they've done, but is that sustainable? I'm not 100% sure with this team. Their goalkeeper's been playing well. Jonathan Sirois had a remarkable season after coming in for James Pentenis getting injured in the first game of the season. So he's been a huge bright spot, but they haven't been able to replicate, obviously, their home record onto the road. And a lot has to do with just, I think sometimes they are a bit naive in the way they think that they're going to play on the road, I believe, and that they can find themselves very open at times, where I think they need to be a little bit more, I think they just need to be a little bit more smart in the way they approach games on the road, and take up a more defensive mentality, and look to perhaps catch teams on their counter attacking style kind of play on the road, because I think that's what we saw out of Wilfred Nancy, and that's why they had so much success last year. And the way this team is built, I don't think they have the ability to match up across the field and be able to just be a ball possession style attacking team, on the road. I think it's just so challenging to play on the road in Major League Soccer, and so they've got to find a different way to be successful, and they've yet to do that.
It's been interesting with Atlanta because 2 weeks ago they end up getting destroyed against the Red Bulls. They lose 4-0. Don't smile, Tyler. It was bad. A lot of people turned it off at half, but then
it was awful. It was terrible. Yeah,
you had Caleb Wiley, call out the players, and he's young, right? And we really weren't sure what was going to happen against Philadelphia, and I think a lot of people, I predicted a 3-1 loss. Wasn't really sure what was going to happen, and it seems like a couple tweaks by Gonzalo Pineda. The players really seem to be playing a full game, which we haven't seen all year, basically. It's going to be interesting to see if they can go on the road here and be able to produce another good result, because I think there's been a lot of questions among the fan base. Is Pineda the coach for Atlanta United?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to win some games on the road as well. I mean, that's what I think it's going to come down to it. I mean, they're very similar, I think, in the way, I don't want to compare teams. It's not probably fair to do, but I think they're very similar in the way New York City's kind of going about their season as well. They've got some talented players that individually can change the game. But again, just kind of, hit these road bumps and these speed bumps in during the year, and just haven't been able to kind of just get into that rhythm of where the good teams will just start to roll off a number of games and just go on a run where you can just kind of put yourself in a good position to just be comfortable, and then even take your game to another level. So I mean, I guess the big question for me to you guys, and I haven't done enough homework yet probably to know this, but is Giakoumakis going to be okay to play this weekend? Doesn't seem like it.
I doubt
It's
it.
questionable. Yeah, Pineda might hold him out, just as a precaution. So
I said in the locker room the other night, I don't think. I mean, now granted, he was walking around fine, but it's a hamstring, so it kind of depends on the severity. But they're so cautious with him because of his history, going back to being in the Premiership, and I mean he's played soccer for like a year and a half straight. He hasn't had much of a break, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him held out until minimum the League's Cup. I just don't think they're going to push it. And Pineda has said specifically how he's super cautious with Giakoumakis, because I think he understands that the depth is not there. You're losing a lot when he's on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I think he would be smart not to obviously push him through kind of this scenario, because you can't afford to lose that type of player. So that's something that obviously will change this team's kind of fortune, I think, as well, as if he is out long term. You guys were talking about acquisitions and stuff. Perhaps that might force the hand of Carlos Bocanegra and Lagerwey. But look, I think that at the end of the day, I think that Pineda started to play some other players. I think Scholl is another player that I think is starting to show a little bit more of what he can probably offer this group as well. And I've watched Atlanta from, say, afar, but from a shorter distance. I haven't had a game with Atlanta this season yet, so I'm looking forward to getting into it and watching these guys this weekend. But I think this is a team that, like I said, just has to now find a way to make it uncomfortable for Montreal, especially this weekend, and perhaps start to think about playing in a different manner than they've been used to playing on the road, and perhaps try and step out on the forefront and put up this team under pressure. I think that would make it a little bit more uncomfortable for Montreal, and perhaps could create some opportunities just off of turnovers. And when you got a player like Almada who can change the game in a heartbeat, I mean, why not, right? Like, why not just try and put this team under pressure and then find your horse?
Yeah. And I think that's something we've been harping on, because we always talk about, there is that, it's not a cliche, but sometimes it feels like a cop out that, MLS is so hard to play on the road. It's true.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you've got to, if you're a good team, you have to get results, right?
Well, I think the other thing too, Tyler, is like, we're talking about Wilfred Nancy there and how he had so much success last year on the road. Well, his success came from a lot of those games. I'm not going to be 100% probably accurate on this, but he won a number of games 3-2, 2-1, where he just said, we're going to go after it. And we're going to give up a goal or two, but we're also going to score a couple. And that's what they were about. Like, they took their chances and they took some risks at certain moments and put their defenders in 1v1 situations. And early on in the year, they struggled last year. We're talking about last year, 2020-22. They struggled in the back with their individual defending, but they found a way to kind of push through that and then became very good. So I think if you have defenders that can defend in 1v1 situations in Major League Soccer, I think you can be a team that can try and unbalance home teams and try and get after them by just being a little bit more dynamic and taking some risks. And, I think if you have the players offensively and defensively, which I think Atlanta does, I mean, they've got a good side. I think they now have to just start to take a little bit of risk on the road.
And it's crazy because I think it's either 3 or 4 blown leads in the last in stoppage time. Like, that's just they've blown leads in Toronto, New York, and I forget the other one, Chicago. Like, it's pretty crazy on how they just can't hold on at the end, and it's just silly mistakes.
Yeah, and set pieces, right? Like, set pieces is one of those can happen from time to time with a team where, like, again, this game is so mental that, when an opposing team is standing over a set piece and you're looking up as a defender and as a goalkeeper, and you're looking up at that clock and it says, 88 or 90 minutes, you're like, you can sometimes get in your head and just lose sight of how to finish off the game. And I think, once you get into that bad habit, it can really cause you some damage. And so perhaps, there's a little bit of that kind of doubt that creeps into the minds of these Atlanta players when those kind of occurrences happen and seem to have happened over late. But, you can get through it, but it's going to take a few games where you got to close out games, and they're going to have to do that to kind of shift that tide as well.
And they did it with Philadelphia. Like, they got that second goal, which was, it was a nervous, you could tell, like, the fans were nervous. They were just waiting for that goal to go in. And then Brooks comes in and scores that goal, and you're like, okay, you're up 2-0. Yeah. Atlanta teams can't blow big leads, right? Like, that just doesn't happen.
No one can, right? No one does.
28-3.
I think that I watched the majority of that game already now, and it didn't seem to me that that Brad Guzan had to do much in that game. I think Atlanta had the run of the game, and that was a real confident effort, and against a good Philadelphia side, of course. So there's games and seasons that can really kind of take your team to another level, and you can kind of earmark this one off as perhaps one of those games where now maybe this Atlanta side can push themselves to that next level, what they need.
So, look, I mean, obviously you're on an Atlanta podcast. We could talk about Atlanta all night, but respecting your time, we do want to quickly just kind of touch on. So the Gold Cup's going on, U.S., Canada. It's relevant. Miles Robinson's obviously playing for the U.S., but what are your thoughts? What's going on with Canada? What's going on with the U.S.? How's it going to go down?
Yeah, I mean, I'm concentrating on Canada, of course. I've watched a little bit of the U.S. and these are tournaments where you're going to see a lot of new faces, of course, and we've seen a bunch of new faces on both sides. For me, though, I think John Herdman going into this tournament, obviously the Nations Cup where they lost to the U.S. and frankly got outplayed and played off the park, which was very disappointing. And this has been the biggest thing that I think John Herdman's been taking a lot of criticism for is in these big games, he hasn't really come through as the tactical mastermind that people thought he was, or I shouldn't say maybe they thought he was, but he preaches that he's got those ideas of the game to be able to spur his team on to bigger and new, better things. But we haven't seen that yet, and the World Cup was one example of it, unfortunately. And this game against the U.S. was another. And so then the Gold Cup came up, and then we're looking at this roster and saying, well, we've got some names here that, frankly, probably won't be in the World Cup in a couple of years. So why are they even there? So that was the first question mark. And then he started to play a lot of these players in the first couple of games, and results didn't happen. And frankly, I think one of the biggest challenges, and I played in 3 of them, is when you take a lot of the European players, those guys come over and in their mind, they're on holiday. And they're going to tell you that they're really concentrated on this game and in this tournament, and they're going to put forth their effort. And I believe they will, and I believe most of them do. But there is a part of them that I know says, well, I should be on vacation right now, right? I should be taking some time. And some declare to the country, well, you know what? No, respectfully, I'm turning down this opportunity because I need to take some time for my own, time and get myself back and re-energized. But some don't. And those players that have come over in this tournament for Canada, I'll take Hoylett as an example, haven't played well. And so that's been disappointing for me. I think that I don't want to blame those individuals, again, because I think it's challenging for those guys. And I know they want to put on their country's jersey, and I respect that. But I blame more Coach Herdman, because I think that there was an opportunity for him to play some young players and really see if some of these guys can hold their own, because that's going to be important. And this is a big tournament where there's some pressure on these guys to perform, and we didn't see enough of that. So the third game, they started to put a little bit more of the youth and some of these unknown players, quote unquote, and they got the result they needed, and so they were able to advance, fortunately. But now I wonder what it's going to look like going forward, and if he's going to actually continue to try and hopefully give some opportunities to some guys that maybe he needs to see in big moments, because that's what I'd like to see, because I think that only is going to pay dividends down the road for this team. But frankly, our country's status, or our I'm trying to find the word exactly. Our leadership
Reputation.
our reputation, I guess you could call it a little bit of that, but more our leadership is a bit been in question over the last few years, and that's disappointing, because with all of the great players that Canada have started to produce, we need to start to see kind of the fruition now of the labor that's been put in from really a lot of these MLS clubs that have developed these academies and helped produce some of these players. And frankly, our Canadian Soccer Association at times is letting us down, and so we need to hold them to a little bit more of a higher standard, I think, and it's starting to happen. But that's just kind of the change of the way that this organization's kind of been used to. It's been something where there hasn't been a lot of accountability being placed on the CSA, and now I think we're starting to see a bit of a shift, and so now they're going to have to come to the table with some results and some good decisions on leadership.
Yeah, just like, sorry, go ahead, Tommy.
Well, I was going to say, were you on Twitter when Berhalter got announced to come back? I mean, that, if you want to talk about a disaster, that was something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to get into that stuff, because I mean, I know the whole story, and it's it's like a soap opera, right? But only in North America, I guess, can we say that that's going to happen. So yeah, look, I mean, I think that there's so many qualified coaches out there that they can choose from, right? So, but at the end of the day, there's a group of people that make these decisions, and some of these people in these leadership positions, frankly, I think, in my personal opinion, don't belong there, and they're in there for other reasons, and that's not right. But that's just the way that this dynamic of the way the CSA especially is built, and perhaps even U.S. soccer, where we look at the rest of the world, and a lot of the governing bodies in the countries, they have the pyramid in the right direction, right? And so the national team and the governing body, they make the decisions, and where it's kind of the reverse now in North America, where the CSA and the U.S. Soccer Association, to a certain degree, I don't think it's as bad as the CSA, are on the bottom, and everyone else on top is now making the decisions for what's supposed to happen, and who's in those positions. And so that's something that, again, I think it's going to be a shift at some stage, but perhaps not to the standard it is everywhere else in the world. And so we have to learn how to deal with that, and hopefully we'll get the right people in those positions to make the right decisions.
Yeah, 2026 will be here before you know it, and I just feel like it's a real pivotal time, not just for American soccer, but for Canadian soccer as well. So interested to see what the picture looks like. I would say maybe 5-10 years from now, once the World Cup and potentially the Women's World Cup too has come through. So, Greg, we're gonna cut you loose. We really appreciate your time. We're looking forward to your call on MLS Season Pass on Saturday, and yeah, thanks again, and hopefully we can have you back soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks for hanging out.
I appreciate it, and I enjoyed it, and you guys are doing some great work, so you guys keep up the work. I think what you guys do to continue to grow this game in North America is important, and so happy to be associated with you guys.
Thanks so much.
Of course, really appreciate it. Thanks, Greg.
All right, fellas, have a good night. Take care.
Appreciate it.
You too.
Cheers.
See ya.
Yeah, great to have Greg Sutton on with us, and yeah, he knows the game. He's played the game. He's played in the Gold Cup, as he said, 3 straight times. Quarterfinalist in 2009, and great to get his insight. So, yeah, looking forward to Saturday, and which should be an interesting match, especially with Quadro not in the fold.
Yeah.
Who rings the bell?
Huh?
Who rings the bell when they score?
A member of their supporters.
A gnome
group. Yeah.
A gnome?
Yes, a gnome.
I was just thinking about that.
It's ringing and there's nobody standing there. It's the weirdest thing in the world.
Well, like Falcons, they have celebrity, like, how like people with the Golden Spike, they have like usually some celebrity come in and hit the horn. What do Falcons do? Rise up, and they hit the train horn. So I was just wondering if they have like special guest Canadians, like Ryan Reynolds. Shows up. And Alanis Morissette. I'm trying to think of more Canadians. I'm running out of Canadians. Those are the two I know. Alanis and
Drake.
That's like generalizing things.
I don't count Drake.
I don't either. But it's the only one I know. I was trying to join this conversation. Screw it. We'll move on now.
Yeah.
Oh, good point. George Campbell. We're gonna see George Campbell.
Didn't even think playing.
Is he healthy?
That's a good question. We'll have to take a look at it. I would assume he is, but yeah, George Campbell, player very familiar to Atlanta United, of course, and then Marseille, of course, played for several years in Montreal. So should be an interesting reunion in the Great White North in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. We have some news regarding some of the younger players. Do we not?
We do. Look, you want me to rapid fire? I'll rapid fire this. I'll move through it, let you guys get caught up on all the Atlanta United younger guys news, because it feels like it's been nonstop with them over the past like 3 weeks. All of this is stemming from the MLS Next Cup, right? U16s won it. They were honored at the last home match against Philly, along with some of the graduates, including Caleb Wiley, who then got into a little bit of a tussle with somebody from Philadelphia and pointed at the scoreboard. I love it. Fighting people, much older than he is. But yeah, so Sean Lanza and Rocket Rita, and we haven't talked a lot about Lanza on here, but Rocket Rita, I mean, if you haven't remembered the name at this point, I don't know what is going on in your brain that you can't remember that name. But Rocket Rita had an outstanding U16 tournament, also the season in general. He's been killer. But both of them are named to the MLS Next All-Star team. So kudos to them. That's a big deal. Again, Rita side U16s went 22-1-1 in their season, and then of course won the cup. So just outstanding from that side, from Kevin Kratz's side. But Sean Lanza, and he's not the only one that's got a ton of talent. I'm actually kind of surprised there was not a couple more names on there, but both of them outstanding talent on the rise. I'm sure we'll see them plenty in the next couple of seasons. You're already seeing Rita a little bit with the twos occasionally. So it's happening. Young guys, talent, the pipeline's there. Be patient. Obviously, you can't rush them into it, but there are more Caleb Wiley's on the way. So be excited about it. Nick Firmino also won the MLS Next. I can't stand this title, by the way. It's the MLS Next Pro mid-season player of the year. So, okay, like kudos to him. I'm not taking anything away from him. The name is just ridiculous. All right, he's the.
What else do you want to call it?
Player of the season.
The halfway through award? No, he's not the player of the season.
Yeah, he's the halfway. It's the halfway. You hit it right there on the head.
Though.
It's the halfway season award.
Semantics.
He's made it halfway to the season, and he's the best player so far.
He's been really good.
So mid and half is your problem?
No,
I don't. I'm not figuring out what your issue is here.
Mid-season player of the year. Of the year.
Oh, of the year.
Got it.
Not the whole year. Like we're halfway through the season.
Got it.
Well, it's of the year. Like this year, he's the mid-season of the.
I don't know, man.
2023.
Somebody needs to get on here on the chat.
Who's on first?
It's whatever. Mid-season player of the year.
Yeah, see, Tim, I agree with Tim. Very mid of you, Tyler.
I know.
My kid calls everything mid.
You halfways.
Yeah. No, he's been really good. I mean, 10 goals this season?
Lots of goals.
For the twos?
Yeah. Like I mean, not taking anything away from Nick Firmino because he's been killing it. Obviously, for the majority of the, I think maybe the fan base that only are going to pay attention to the first team, we saw what he did. He played 3 minutes, scored a goal for the first team. And it was the game-tying goal, saved the game. Like, but the dude, he's just carrying on everything he's doing for the second team. Super excited about it. You should be excited about him. He's not a homegrown because he was already on a homegrown contract with the Revs. Came here. Fully expect him to continue. I mean, he's just on a roll. And I do think by the end of the season, if he keeps up the form that he's in, I would not be surprised to see him sign to a contract for the first team.
Yeah.
We'll see. But regardless, mid-season player of the year. So we're halfway through the season, and he's the player of the year already for the mid-season. Whatever. But kudos to Nick Firmino. Super happy for him.
Yeah.
I'm not really understand how the contracts work, but like, is there not signing him now? Is there any potential risk of losing him? Because I think we've already lost, a young keeper, right? And he's obviously came in and produced immediately. The midfield has been a struggle. I mean, people are calling for it in the comments. Omar, when are we announcing him to the first team? I know he's got to play. The important thing is for younger players to continue to play. Oh, and it's his logo. So he's got Firmino in the logo. So Omar's all in on him. But
thank you, Sonny.
If you got a spot, why not?
Yeah, I mean,
think you do have a spot for him.
You could have somebody come in and snatch him up. Obviously,
theoretically speaking.
Yeah, theoretically. I don't know that it happens because I do think unless like somebody came along with some crazy money that does not deserve to be in Next Pro, then I think Atlanta's just going to turn it down. That being said, I mean, it's not just MLS we're talking about. I mean, a team from out of the league, out of the hemisphere could come and say, "Hey, Nick Firmino's been killing it, and we see something in him, so here's the checkbook," and that's a possibility. I think you're kind of hedging your bets a little bit and saying, "All right, well, those odds are rather unlikely. Not because he doesn't have talent, but just because a lot of teams aren't going to really pick on a second division side to go after players maybe for their first division team. But it could happen. Yes. So it could happen, to answer your question. Is it likely? No. But he's definitely catching plenty of attention, I think, from a lot of folks. So
that's why I'm nervous. One MLS, one small appearance, a goal, did something that, brought some excitement to the midfield, moving the ball forward, not sideways, right? We don't like the sideways passes. We like the forward passes. That's something I just, I get nervous. And, Omar brings up, talking about the keeper, he said, we didn't lose him because we're too high in Guzan. No, he's a young talent and teams wanted him. We have another, like Garces, right?
Yep.
Is our other young keeper out there, so you got two young guys, and unfortunately both of them want to play at the highest level possible, so you had to, losing one isn't the end of the world, I guess, but I don't know, I just get nervous about losing good young players.
I would love to know the money situation behind Reyes going to Norwich City. You're going to a pretty big club in England. Like, that's not something to laugh at. Like, I wish it got more attention. I wish the twos got more attention in that kind of respect, because like the dude's a talent. It absolutely is a talent. And it's not, I'm not going to say he's going to be missed in the sense that like Atlanta doesn't have depth at that position. They do have lots of other really good talent. Garces is one. You've got a couple of guys that are coming up through the academy that are really good. One of them, again, just won goalkeeper of the year at the U16 level. So like the talent's there. And it should be a thing that's maybe celebrated a little bit more, in the sense that like, dude, one of your twos just got sold to a championship team. That's a big deal. But you also kind of think like, what could have been, because Atlanta, the first team, has a bunch of guys that are maybe not all of them at the end of their kind of life cycle in terms of their career, but they're getting close. Obviously, Brad Guzan's close. So you want to see maybe a lifer type goalkeeper that's been brought up under the likes of a guy that has the experience like Brad Guzan. And then that's a position that you don't really have to be too concerned about for years, as long as you can hit on the right one. And Reyes is going to be the right one. If it's not for Norwich City, it's going to be for somebody.
Yeah, and then just bringing it back to Firmino, he's I feel like Atlanta United is taking maybe a wait-and-see approach. His talent is evident, and we see that 10 goals, 3 assists with MLS Next Pro Atlanta United 2. Kane had a good showing, a brief appearance with Atlanta United, scored the equalizing goal, of course. So I think they're taking a wait-and-see approach. They don't want to just jump into something and then end up pan out. So I think it's wise. I can certainly see him definitely being signed to the deal. It can't be a homegrown deal, of course, because New England already has signed him as a homegrown player, and he was with them for a little bit before coming to Atlanta United to system. So, yeah, good on him. Feels like the sky's the limit for him. He has a lot of his career in front of him, obviously, as a young player. But, yeah, tearing it up in MLS Season Pro. I keep saying MLS Season Pro. MLS Next Pro. I don't know. So, I got sidetracked by the mid-season player of the year thing, but
it screws everybody up, and y'all wanted to make fun of me. You'd be like, "Oh,
well, no, we weren't making fun of you. We just weren't sure what you were referring to."
I was making fun of him a little bit.
Yeah,
you were making fun.
It was in your face. I could see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I was the only one that was optimistic about Philly. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Firmino would need a international spot, right?
No, he. Don't. Well, he was born in Brazil. I don't think he does, because he's been in the U.S. so long.
Yeah.
Plus, he was a homegrown for New England.
Yeah.
So I feel like
then bring him on, sign him, get out of here, just bring him on.
Okay.
And then really quickly, Sonny asking because we got a couple more quick things to bring up, but Sonny saying if we didn't sell Gutman, we wouldn't have had an international spot for Miyamba. I've been curious about that. I don't think so. I don't think they would have had a spot.
Right.
I do believe all the spots were full up until like officially, I don't know what, 7 hours ago.
Well, I think
So-
you still have the one for Aruju.
That is true. That
Yeah,
is
you
true.
still have that one, but you're probably replacing another
Right, that's probably going to be a like
DP.
for like, I would imagine.
Right.
JBJ saying, "What's up with Mosquera?" Edwin Mosquera is training with the team, not officially like available for selection, but he is training with the team. Was there last week. Saw him. He looked really good in training. I'll throw that out there just to throw a little bit of spice into what's going on with this transfer window. But he's training, so who knows what happens? That's up in the air. They got to figure out how to. He's the fourth U22, so they're going to have to play some games to get rid of one of them at some point. But yes, he's there training and doing well. Let's see. So speaking of the twos, they are playing Crown Legacy on July 9th, same day as the Gold Cup, but 3 hours before. 5 p.m. on Apple TV, so you can go watch probably Nick Firmino score another goal. Knock on wood. But it's Crown Legacy, and Crown Legacy has been doing very well, actually, in Next Pro.
Yeah.
They are Charlotte's second division side. So it's been some games with them already, but Crown Legacy's doing solid.
Yeah, really good player. Petkovic, I believe, plays for them.
Yeah.
So I know Charlotte are very high on him. Has been called to the Serbian national team already. So 20 years old. So I know Serbian U21, I should say. So I know a lot of people will be keeping an eye on him and his progress. But Petkovic is a very key player for Crown Legacy FC. So we're talking about the first team. We did mention Almada and Yakimakis, of course. Last week were named to the All-Star team. But Doug wrote about it in the AJC how Yakimakis found out. I guess he was going from his old house to his new house that he and his wife had just bought, and he learned the news and he told his wife, and of course his wife was excited. But it was something he was looking forward to ever since coming over to MLS, and it's something that our leagues don't have around the world, guys. And this is something that's very unique to MLS, and maybe it gets lost for some players, especially from international players who have played overseas, who aren't 100% sure about an all-star game. I know Arsenal aren't. It's just an exhibition for them against MLS players. But yeah, it's a thing obviously here in North America, and Amada certainly has not played in one. Yakimakis certainly has not played in one. It's just not a thing in Argentina and Europe. So still good to see them both get named. I mean, no surprises. I don't think anyone was shocked to see them play or named.
Does he play
team.
though?
That's
No.
a good question. Yeah,
No.
especially the injury. So, yeah, I would be very cautious if I were Wayne Rooney and keep him off the field.
I love all-star games. I'm not one of those people that's like, we should not have all-star games. I don't like Atlanta players being in all-star games as much as I love the prestige of it, for sure.
Yeah. It's different than
don't want them to get hurt.
NBA and NHL. I mean, NBA, it's not as much running. I mean, it's a lot of running, but it's not as much running. NHL, I mean, you're an NHL guy. I feel like the style of the All-Star game has changed in recent years.
Hey, it's 3-on-3. It's a joke.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Baseball used to mean something, and now it doesn't.
Yeah, and not much injury risk in MLB, and then no one cares about the Pro Bowl, so we're not going to talk about that. Very few, I should say, care about the Pro Bowl, but yeah, it's always a risky run in a sport like soccer, where there's a lot more running and a risk of a freak injury or something like that. Knock on wood. But yeah, Almada, I would say, let's get some time, and not as convinced that Yakimakis will, just because of that hamstring. You don't want to risk it, and it's something that all teams have to kind of. I know Tyler, you don't like it, but all teams kind of have to go through it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great prestigious thing, right? Like, it's cool to be picked. You could go out there and score a hat trick and it doesn't matter. Like, even if you're going to go, if you're Almada, who you're already looking at going to Europe anyway, you're going to go play against Arsenal, which I'm excited, by the way. Like, I love Arsenal. Hate me if you want to, whatever. But like, to be able to go and show maybe a little bit of that against an Arsenal team that's using this as an exhibition, they're still Arsenal, their B squad is still that's going to be a challenge for any team. But you get to go show that off, right, on Apple TV now, worldwide potentially audience. So like for on Almada or somebody like that, it makes a little more sense to go out there and show out, because it's adding on to what you've already shown. However, I would be totally okay if they were to go play in the skills competition, get to watch some goalie wars that they're bringing back, and then dip out. Like, that's all I want. I don't care about the game itself. I'm excited to see Arsenal game just because I'm a fan. I like Arsenal, but I just don't want anybody to get hurt. And it's not just Atlanta. Like, I don't want any MLS player to get hurt or Arsenal player. I just don't. I think it's just you go to Leagues Cup, you're vying for another cup, you get hurt. Hey man, them's the breaks, whatever. But you're going to a game that's just made up, and I like the concept of it, but I hate what it could do to players, and it just bugs me.
You know who they're going to play next year, right?
Manchester United.
Columbus? No, I was going to say they're watch them just put MLS All-Stars against Wrexham.
Hey, that would not surprise me, actually.
just because of the eyes that it would bring, just because of the TV and all that. I mean, MLS should win that, but
for sure.
Yes, they should.
Sure.
Either way, good for them. Excited for them.
Yeah.
Just don't get hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Just have fun.
I just hope both teams have fun.
Everybody has a trophy.
Real quick, of course, El Tráfico was played last night, July 4th, Tuesday, and I saw a tweet from Rob earlier in the day talking about July 4th, and the NFL has Thanksgiving, the NBA has Christmas, MLB has Memorial Day, and
they have every day.
Yeah, they have every day. Really.
They have every day. Don't give them a day.
Really. I just kind of sidebarring. Why not have MLS own the 4th of July?
Do it.
Granted, you have two teams in Canada, but at the same time, I mean, it'll be fun for them to really own this holiday. 3 teams in Canada, Vancouver.
You forgot about Toronto. Vancouver.
Yeah, I'm going to get some tweets later. But yeah, but why not own the 4th of July? Like, NFL owns Thanksgiving, and like I said, the NBA owns Christmas. What is NHL own? I forget. Tommy, Canada Day or
Black Friday?
Black Friday.
They have a big day.
Yeah. I mean, I used to follow hockey a lot. I guess I forgot about that. But yeah, why not have MLS own the 4th of July? And for the Canadian teams, why not have the Canadian teams do their thing on July 1st, Canada Day? And yeah, have that going on. I mean, I can't take credit for this. Rob Usry, I saw him tweet something to this sentiment earlier, but I totally agree. It'd be fun for that to kind of happen. So again, just kind of sidebarring.
Well, the timing is perfect too, right? Like, one, I just think it would be ironic because of how down many maybe traditional sports people have looked on soccer in the United States or North America in general over the years, and like, oh, that's not an American sport. To have it on 4th of July and to be like the big derbies, would be just amazing. But like, that crowd last night at the Rose Bowl was off the chain. You should be happy. Like, if you're a soccer fan in this country, to see that many people, and not just that many people, but that, like, the vibe that they brought, that is outstanding. And take July 4th. Have an El Tráfico, because that is really one of the bigger derbies. and then have another, maybe an earlier time slot, whatever it may be, whether it's Atlanta, Nashville, New York, whatever. Just you can make it work, and you can turn it into a good, solid like evening of soccer.
Yeah.
And then the Canada Day, but the timing works because you're far enough into the season that like these games mean something more at this point, depending on where they're at in the standings. And like last night, this is a potential for LA Galaxy to break out of that funk that they were in all season and really bump back up into the playoffs. And LAFC is really on a downward spiral at this point. So they mean something. This is not an early, like the opening day when they were supposed to do this was a good idea, obviously, because it's introducing Apple TV. But this is an opportunity to really bring something that means something. And on a day where you can really celebrate it, make it big. And I'm all for it. I think they should do it 100%. That's, to me, would be the way to introduce like a true derby environment, whatever you want to call it, to the United States.
Justin saying
1, 4, 7, and 10.
Yeah.
Do it all day. That's what Sydney, I was thinking the other day, they have Hockey Day in America. That was like another big one that they do. And they start at noon, and they just move it on every couple hours. There's another game that starts, and they televise all day. Like, MLS has got to get creative next year on the schedule, because it's not creative this year. It's just they put them all in these times, and we were pumped for it. I think we all liked it when it was originally announced. Like, hey, this is cool. Like, you got it all night of MLS, but it ended up not really being that way. So they're gonna they need to be creative, and they need to get more eyes on this. And Messi's definitely going to be something that's going to motivate them, I think, to all sit down at the table and say, how do we get more eyes on this league in general? And
I got a quick question for you, both of y'all, and people in the chat too. Any chance that they try to break this at Sanford Stadium, go to UGA, which I get is not Atlanta proper, but like whatever. Neither is the Rose Bowl for LA, but you go out to Sanford and fill that stadium up for an Atlanta, whatever, Nashville, Atlanta, Miami, Atlanta, maybe Orlando. I don't know. Orlando's fans suck. Whoever, like bring in two solid fan bases. Charlotte would honestly probably be the better one. Charlotte's fan base travels well. We know Atlanta's fan base is going to travel well. It's a big enough stadium. It's historical in a similar sense to the Rose Bowl. Like, see more of that. Do that on July 4th along with the Rose Bowl. Like, I would love that.
Maybe hell is real up in your neck of the woods, Tommy, at Ohio Stadium. Like the Crew used to play at Ohio Stadium when they first started. Why not bring that back? Do a Hell's Real Derby with Cincinnati, New York City, Red Bulls, maybe at MetLife or something like that. I mean, logistically, you'll have to work around some things, and it may not make a lot of sense for some teams. But yeah, MLS, I feel like, really needs to lean into this. That's just
like the Winter Classic. Like the Winter Classics.
Winter
you just take
Classic, exactly.
You take it somewhere else, a bigger environment. That's a good idea. Like, it's a good idea. Just bring it into these huge stadiums and see what happens. I mean, and right now, I mean, the league's selling. Like, you look at the attendance that it's coming out, and especially for, rivalry games, their fans are showing up. So long as you're sure that you're not going to get embarrassed and say you go do it at MetLife and you only get like 30% of the stadium filled or something, you know what I mean? Like, as long as you know that those fans are going to show up, I think that you're going to be fine. But yeah, I mean, they've got to get creative, I think. I mean, that's how you're going to grow this sport here, is getting these big environments. Because like, people talk to me. I got a message from one of my coworkers today. He said, holy crap, like, what happened in LA? There were so many fans there. Like, he said, I can't even believe there's enough soccer fans in the country to fill that stadium. I was like, all right, shut up. But like, I mean, he was, I mean, but that like got on SportsCenter. SportsCenter doesn't want to show MLS anymore, and they had a big thing on it. It's cool.
Yeah. And then Dan saying, as far as Sanford Stadium won't happen because you have to remove the headgear. Yes. However, now granted, this was a long time ago, but they did play one of the finals in the '96 Olympics for soccer at Sanford Stadium. So it's been done before. I don't know. what's changed in terms of like where the bushes are at, the hedges. Like I don't know if that's changed.
No, don't call them bushes.
I had to.
Wow.
I love UGA, by the way, guys. Don't hate on me.
Call them bushes.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm about to Google this.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's between the hedges.
Between the hedges.
Yeah,
bushes.
UGA. That's Sanford Stadium. That's where they play, and they have hedges, not bushes.
Yes, not bushes.
Surround the outside of the field, but they did play.
Oh,
they have
okay.
played
I've
soccer
seen this.
matches there before, so I think it can be done. Now it's not going to be the same dimensions as like Mercedes-Benz, but it can be done. I think again, unless something's changed since then, but I don't think Sanford Stadium's really changed much in a long time. But that would be, to me, that environment would just be cool. I'm not saying it needs to be all the time. Obviously, like that's just kind of a one-off thing, like maybe once a year for sure. But I like the idea.
Tommy, I forgot you're a Big Ten country. They're not used to winning championships.
Oh,
No, Pac-12. Pac-12.
Pac-12. Well, yeah, you're Pac-12. I forgot, but you live in Big Ten country. So.
Yeah, I get.
Anyway,
yeah, you're hilarious.
Anyway, they took the hedges out. Dan said so. Yeah, I mean,
take them out, put them back
know.
in. You're making
They're
enough money
hockey
off the
boards.
game anyway.
They're hockey
Maybe-
boards. Check them into it.
maybe they're not. Maybe it's too far from Atlanta. But I don't know. It's a thought. It's a thought. So
Ibarra
yeah.
checks Messi into the hedges.
The bushes.
Bush.
Messi's out for the year. Goes into the hedges. That's
Dude,
that's the headline we need.
That'll be
Can't wait to
so
write
so
that one.
MLS.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. I mean, it's an idea we all feel that MLS should embrace. But yeah, it was fun. I watched a little bit of it last night, not much, but yeah, it was fun to see that. I saw the highlights on Twitter. So, you haven't really talked too much about Montreal, and we may have to cut it short just a little bit tonight. But Montreal, of course, losing to NYCFC on Saturday, just their second home loss of the season. Of course, we know about Atlanta United's away form. Let's talk predictions. How are we feeling about Saturday against CF Montreal?
So I think this is probably one of the. There's 3 games left before they take the break, right? Yeah. So you've got Montreal on Saturday, and then you got to go stay on the road. You go play New England on Wednesday, and then you go and you come back home and you play Orlando. But one of the things I looked at is Orlando doesn't have a midweek game that week. So Atlanta's going to be playing on short rest. So if I'm Atlanta, you need to win this game. This is a big one here. I know you're playing at home against Orlando and it'll be on short rest and all that, but like that's still hard to do on that. So I think this is going to be a big one.
And
I think
Orlando's
that
away record is really good.
Yeah, like I think that you played your best game of the season. You can't have a letdown. I know you're going to be missing some guys. Giakoumakis, I know, kind of helped out with that first goal by making that run that, they took him down in the box. But you've got enough talent here, and you're getting talent coming back. Like you're getting Etienne, Fortune. Like you're getting some guys back in the lineup. So I think they're going to be okay here. I'm going to say that they win this game 2-1.
I'm going to go with really quick sidebar. The match and we talked about it on our show the other night on our player, quote unquote, player ratings video. This was the best match that Atlanta has played under Gonzalo Pineda, in my opinion, against Philly. Overall, one of the best wins, all things considered, the opponent, how you played, the result, everything else. You have to take that momentum and you have to carry it on the road. You have to go get a win on the road. You get 3 points on the road and it's huge. Now, New England's not going to be easy. Orlando, to what you're saying, Tommy, back home, not going to be easy just because of the rest. And they also have a fairly solid away record. That being said, I'm going to go with 2-0 to Atlanta.
I'm going to go 1-0 Atlanta. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring affair at all. I think Atlanta kind of gets one. I don't think it comes early. maybe comes a little bit later in the match, and then kind of have to hang on to close it out. But I can see this being a 1-0 game. Atlanta. I mean, it could just as well be 1-0 Montreal, but yeah, I don't see a lot of goals being scored in this match. To be honest with you, Montreal 20 goals scored this season. Granted, Atlanta have 39, but that's been a little padded by a few results. But then also allowing 35, of course. Montreal allowing 28. So yeah, I still say maybe 1-0-ish Atlanta United. Just kind of my personal feelings on that. I see Omar saying 2-2, Dan saying 6-3 Atlanta.
Wow, I want to watch that game.
That's gonna be a fire game.
Poutine in for everybody. If your team scores 6 goals, free poutine for everybody.
Hey,
Yes.
look, last time Atlanta played a Canadian team away,
That didn't work out great.
it didn't work out well for me.
It did not.
For me personally,
Did not.
Yeah.
that's okay.
Well,
But keep the clean sheet though, for real. Like that's my thing.
Back-to-back clean sheets you both are predicting, and that would be huge for this team
Massive.
because they've just been so sloppy, And well, we saw a stat today that was posted about like this was the most block shots,
Yeah.
in the history of
9.
the team against
No, I
Philadelphia.
think in the history of MLS.
I don't think it was MLS. I thought it said it was. I
No.
originally thought I read that too, but I went back and reread it.
yeah, most in an MLS match for Atlanta United. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
Juanjo at 4 on its own, which is pretty insane. But yeah, let's hope they carry out the momentum from Sunday onto Saturday north of the border. We have an
Don't forget
announcement
your passports.
Yes, exactly. Bring your passports because you don't want to not make the trip and then eventually get kicked off the team. Well, not kicked off, but released. In that,
Poor Carlton.
yeah, poor guy. We have an announcement to make, and it is in regards to, and you guys are like the first to ever hear this, and we'll post it on Twitter as well. But you guys are the first to hear this.
I don't know what this
Reds.
is.
Okay, you didn't see the note that I left in our show notes.
Oh no, I guess I missed this. I'm excited.
Okay. Threads, which is the new Twitter alternative by Instagram and Meta, who owns Facebook, Instagram, just came out as we were doing the show, and I thought I could sign us up for a Threads account. So, again, you guys are the first to hear this if you're watching live on the stream. And again, we'll post this to Twitter as well. But threads.net/scarves and spikes is our Threads URL. And I don't know how it's going to go. It could be great. It could be a flop. You will need to sign up for the Threads app and follow us there. But yeah, threads.net/@scarves and spikes. I posted it in the chat as well. If you are watching on the stream or listening to us on the podcast, why not just say how you're listening to us, how you're watching, and yeah, let's have some fun. Again, I don't know how it's going to go.
Now that being said,
Total
we're not
flop.
going anywhere.
Yeah,
And no, Omar. So look, we jumped in early. We don't have to be on there scarves and the letter N stripes. We actually get to have our and. It's scarves and
A-N-D.
stripes over there.
yes.
What was the other Twitter thing that was supposed to? Was it pterodactyl or something?
Mastodon.
Oh, wrong Power Ranger. I'm sorry.
Wrong
I thought it was the other Power.
Animal.
I knew it was a Power Ranger. The Black Power Ranger. Okay.
Triceratops.
I didn't say it was like Dragonzord.
Pteranodon.
Saber-toothed tiger.
The Green Power Ranger was the best because his name was Tommy. So
There you go. I think Tommy was a favorite for a lot of people,
yeah,
to be honest with you.
he hooked up with the Pink Power Ranger. He was everybody's hero.
Kimberly, yeah.
Rest in peace, Green Ranger.
Yeah, poor guy.
Rest in peace, Goodman.
It's a shame.
Oh, jeez. Get out of here. Get out of here with... You need to start framing these. Like, all these jerseys that you keep buying. I have a Jurgen Damm one. I gave it to some random kid in a parking lot.
What?
Wow.
What? I think I told you that.
Why don't you do that to Jurgen?
So I when I came into town, I forget which game it was. I just had it with me. I had it like under the Christmas tree, like right when the transfer window opened. I think when they were, or I don't remember when it was, but I had it under the Christmas tree for some reason, and then I brought it to Atlanta and I just gave it to some kid. I was like, "Hey, you want this?" It was from China, so it was like $10 or whatever, and it said Flash. It didn't say Dom. It said Flash, and I just gave it. I gave it to the kid. He was excited, so I was happy.
Tommy
for him.
Santa.
Yeah.
Yes, Santa Tommy.
So I've had a lot of people tell me I should get a Bocanegra jersey next.
No. Don't.
No, come on. You yelled at me for making a Barry joke about that last week. And now all of a sudden it's cool. Like the joke's cool. You stole my joke and now you're saying
I'm just telling you what people on Twitter said. I don't know.
When someone on Twitter says it, it's because you're saying it. Were your kids telling you this? Your kids telling you to say this, Tyler? Oh
no,
man.
Not my kids.
Your wife?
I don't know, maybe.
Oh man.
All right. Any final thoughts before we get out of here? Yes.
Let's get some more rumors. Let's get some more rumors out there.
Where you at, Zilf?
We need some DP rumors. Like that's what we need. We need to get that big player. Like that's what we need to start being rumored at. That's where it's gonna get interesting. And let's see if anything else comes out with Almada.
Yeah.
Here. I mean, you already had the Man City, Man U rumor. I mean, that guy had like 2,500 followers. So who knows how legit that was, but like let's see what happens.
Yeah. Interest. So I don't know how interest, what's going to become of interest, but yeah, we need rumors, and maybe we'll have rumors to talk about next week. Speaking of next week, we're on Tuesday, right? Because Atlanta United plays on Wednesday.
Yep.
7 p.m. Same time, different day, same place. We don't know who we're going to have on yet, but we'll post that on Twitter and or Threads.
Or
Instagram
somewhere.
too.
All of the social medias.
Triceratops.
Saber-toothed tiger.
Don't make fun of the Pink Ranger. Don't.
By the way, if you haven't seen the reel that was put up about Caleb Wiley, you're missing out. The driver's license one.
Yes.
So
I never heard of that song before.
Oh my word.
You didn't know who Roman Reigns was, or no? What was it? Yeah, Roman Reigns. You didn't know that Roman. Don't yell at me for not knowing a song about a driver's license.
Roman Reigns was. Come on, I knew who Roman Reigns was.
Okay.
All right. Should we get out of here?
We're getting.
Y'all need to fight. Y'all got some
Shut up, Tyler.
Sexual tension.
Hit the music. Hit the music. Get Tyler out of here.
Throw down.
Wow.
Goodman's ruined us.
What a show.
We're all jerks.
Catch us on the Velociraptor app.
There was no Velociraptor Power Ranger. Oh, jeez.
I didn't watch Power Rangers.
The Triceratops.
Donatello.
Hey,
Raphael.
Michelangelo.
Hey,
All right.
O'Neal.
Bye, y'all.
See you guys.
See ya.